Councillor Casey.
I'm just waiting for the staff member to sit.
Oh.
Is it Ruth?
Yeah. June. No, it's Ruth.
Well, first of all, just to signal an amendment, which will be that we defer the decision on approach until we have received the evidence and support, which would be the LiDAR information and the consent information. So that's just signalling that ahead of time. The questions relate to, first of all, a really good thing. The Urban Forest Strategy Workshop was one of the best workshops I have been to date and since. And it's just a shame that the local boards weren't given the same opportunity. I don't know what you presented at the cluster workshops, but I know that councillors around this table were gobsmacked by the figures that were shown, especially the south and the lack of trees. It was an amazing workshop, and I still remember some of the things that were said, which is quite unique. So that was great. I am concerned, however, though, about the local boards and what I've heard today, especially in relation to two things. Who decides, I'll do this through the chair, who decides that an issue that we as a regional body are discussing goes to the local boards, not the local board clusters, but the local boards, i.e. they go to a meeting and present it, or a workshop and present it, and who decides that doesn't happen, instead we'll go to whatever a cluster is?
Yeah, so when that motion came up, remember we had Dr. Mel's Barton, there was general concern about where we were heading with tree protection, and motions went up, and there could have been a motion that the report, when drafted, could go to the local boards either for their information or for their consideration. No one put that motion. So it's really up to this committee or any committee to direct where the officers should take their work. They brought it back here, but as Ruth outlined, she did approach the local board advisors.
The senior local
correct.
Board.
So it's always when that does occur, it's always up to any one of us to highlight the fact that the report should go for either information or for decision making to boards.
Well, just on that, with these resolutions, the boards are excluded again. There's nothing up there about any further involvement of local boards. So, given that I'm moving to defer it anyway, maybe it will give us time to figure out how we can work them into this process, because most definitely the local boards should be involved in the development of all of this. My other questions relate to the LiDAR data, and this is April 2018. We've got data that came in the 2013 and 2016. Are you saying that not even the 2013 data has been analysed? Has no analysis
my understanding
been done?
is, yes, the 2013 data has been analysed, which gives you the baseline, but you need to actually start to build up a trend analysis of further LiDAR flights.
And that hasn't been done?
That is being done, and so the information is now being analysed to be able to be reported back
Oh, that's
to
great.
Environment Committee in
Why
August.
didn't we fast track that? It's not through you, it's through the chair again, but...
20th of February.
Whenever.
Sorry, that was my bad.
All right, Alfie. He's not really interested in much I've got to say. Mr. Chairman,
Sorry, what was that,
I was
Councillor?
directing a question to you.
Okay, and I had something on my shoulder. So, Councillor Casey, I am interested in what you have to say. So, please retract that.
I'll withdraw that and apologise.
Thank you. Do you want to proceed?
I'll just come back to me when I do my amendment.
Okay. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Sure. I've got a number of questions, Mr. Chair. It may well be that now may not be the appropriate time to answer those questions, but the questions may inform the later report. So I'm going to put those questions anyway. And I guess one of the first questions is around the consents matter, and that is around having more accurate information around consents, which is something that I've asked consistently now for some years. That's making sure that there are the appropriate fields to capture the data across all kinds of consents. So I'd like to know what the fix is around that, what we have to do. because it's outstanding and, in my view, is not going to go away. So that's something that a later report could cover. The other question that I've got, which is a general question around context, and that is the larger context in terms of tree cover, around the impact of climate change, increasing temperatures, Kauri dieback, myrtle rust, sea level rise. All of these things are going to incur significant tree loss across Auckland. So that is a general context. The other question I've got is around the context of, in particular, loss of carbon and the role of trees in that, and how the loss of cover goes to meeting our climate change mitigation options. And I note that, particularly in terms of the loss of large trees, it's not just the loss of the tree itself. Sometimes it's the loss of a whole ecosystem, the supporting soil, everything. So we're not just talking about tree loss. And I'd also suggest that you add mangroves into the fix, because the mangrove forests of Auckland are one of the most important forms of carbon sequestration we've got in the region. The other question I've got is around the LiDAR data and the necessity around that. The other question I've got goes to predictability going forward, because you've referred to the unitary plan. And the context around that is that, given the section sizes, particularly in greenfield areas, allow little, if any, opportunity for trees, and that the intensity in brownfield or existing areas allow little, if any, opportunity for tree growth, certainly anything of any substance. What's the predictability going forward around tree loss across those parts of Auckland that are turning into green fields and also intensifying? And I'd suggest there's a high degree of predictability around that. I would ask a further question around any case studies, and I think that in a report that's important, because I know that when I look around me and I observe the streets in my vicinity, I hear the chainsaws, I see the loss in tree cover, I experience that firsthand. So I know that to be the case. So there are some of the questions that I would ask, and certainly I think local boards need to have the opportunity to put forward the questions that they've got.
Thank you. Good. Councillor Simpson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of my questions have been answered, so I'm just going to cover one point. And I preface it by saying that I'm a great believer of private property rights. But I do note that there is nothing in the Act, or indeed in the unitary plan, that guarantees notification of any notable tree removal on private land.
Correct.
And so therefore I wonder if you would consider adding to the resolutions something along the lines of Dr. Barton's point in number 9. She asks that we request a report to promote incentives for landowners to retain and protect trees on private land. And I wondered if that could possibly be included in your resolution C to come back to the Environment and Community Committee.
I'm happy to include that. I sort of take it as a given, but if you'd like to specify that.
Well, it's not a given, and she's given a list of things, and so if I'm not the mover and I'm not the seconder, the deputy mayor is, but it would be nice, I think, if that could be included.
And Mr. Reid's taking a lot of notes about what he's hearing here, and I could see him writing furiously when Councillor Walker was speaking to the motions, and I'm sure we can bring that in. But if you would like to specify it in the motions, if you could work it up with the staff.
I'm happy to add a D if you like. Yeah.
Can you just work it up with the staff? Well, it can be part of the C, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll just add the words to the C.
Well, it might not be the best idea.
Councillor Filipina again.
Have it as D.
Okay.
Yeah, Chair, look at the question just on what's been asked now. the report is around managing and protecting trees in Auckland. We're also, and Phil, I go back to you and Ruth now, what other policies or strategies are we mixing up here? Because at the moment we've mentioned urban forest strategy, we've got that. We're also looking at legislative sort of advocacy at this stage, possibly if it goes through, around the RMA. We're also looking at having around notable trees and what we do around that particular issue. So wouldn't it be better, Phil and Ruth, if we ended up looking at each of those separately? Because the urban forest strategy that I've read, and everybody else has, actually covers quite a bit of work and has underneath it a lot of the strategies relating to it. So, you know, even though the heading is managing, protecting trees in Auckland, a lot of what the urban forest strategy wants to achieve, and it's there now, you know, I think we just might be holding the work that needs to be done on that. I just wanted to get your comment on that, because that's where my head is now, just saying, look, hold on, we've got so many issues that have been raised here. We're getting to a point where the urban forest strategy, which was passed in 20th of February, we're going to slow a lot of that stuff down, which has, you know, quite a bit of policy and strategies within Auckland Council that also includes the government. So, can you? Look, I'm just getting so, yeah.
Through the chair, yes, I tend to agree. The forest strategy is the most recent global consideration of what we've got across council to be able to achieve our goal that we've set of an increase in the percentage of urban forest cover. And yes, the action plan that sits within that is the way that we currently as a council intend to seek that. And that's why earlier on I did say that we are very heavily skewed towards the non-regulatory approach within council, with its associated commitments that go with that in order to enable those actions to be undertaken.
So, through you, Chair, just a further question, and the reason I gave you that piece of paper, it just sort of reinforced, one, the decision that was made on the 20th, but it also could include, if it's, you know, through you and Councillor Cashmore, it'll include the resource consents data. It may include in the other reports, but when you have a look at the one, Councillor Cashmore, that you ended up seconding on the 20th of February, that gave a wide spectrum, and there's no issues with adding on there, but my concern through you, Chair, is that we may lose the impetus and movement around the urban forest strategy, and that's my concern.
Look, I think Councillor Filipaina makes a really good point here, that we've taken a direction. That urban forest strategy is probably a little vague to be honest, it's a little distant in my memory at the moment, but it is a well worked up body of work, and from recollection, we all supported that. It was unanimous. Councillor Filipaina, is that correct?
Yeah, look, I'm just looking at our strategy again.
So I think we're not starting from base one here, even though the Planning Committee actually instructed this direction and last year, and Ruth and Phil have worked this paper up. In the interim, the urban forest strategy has been adopted, and that really sets quite a different direction to the former direction that we were undertaking. So let's make sure that we take that on board, and that's the point that Councillor Filipaina is emphasising here.
Yeah. So, just another supplementary question, sorry, Chair. And so, Phil and Ruth, with the report that, and hopefully C does get changed to what I want to be put in there, and it's up to the Chair and the seconder, but when it comes back, and it'll be in August, when it comes back to the, Environmental and Community Committee. My concern with the report that we have in front of me is number 24, and it's around the resource consents data, saying that there is an issue with the delay in getting that quantitative and qualitative information. I mean, again, it's around. So, do you think that the information, I mean, we're crystal ball gazing now, but do you think that'll be ready before the LIDAR information 2017?
It's through the chair. It's doable.
Okay.
It's a manual system, as I spoke about earlier on.
Yeah.
If we are looking at all consents that relate to urban trees, then that is a lot of consents. If you think 50 consents a day that are issued by this council, that's a lot of consents to actually go through to identify which ones resulted in the loss of an urban tree, because the systems that we've got to categorise those consents only give us part of the picture.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Can I just go back to Councillor Simpson? Councillor Simpson, I think doesn't really need another motion.
No.
Maybe it just
I'm
needs to
happy
be
not-
slotted in here.
Happy to have it slotted in. I was just listening to what.
And I
people
think the
said.
staff have picked it up anyway.
It probably doesn't even need to be highlighted, but as long as it's picked up somewhere, I just think that, as I said, there's nothing in the rules. But if we want to change it, the best thing is probably to provide some sort of incentive system. And
Okay, Phil, can we just make a note under that C that includes things like incentives for landowners to retain trees?
Yeah, through the chair, I had a conversation with Councillor Simpson about the attachment to the February INE report, which spoke to the monetary amount of commitment to new plantings, based on either an objective of a 22% urban forest cover or the 30% urban forest cover. So those were the specifics of the conversation.
Okay, covered. Thank you. Councillor Newman.
Is it comments now? Or?
Some have already made comments. So do we have? I'll go through the questions first.
Questions first.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, question?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions. One of them just following on the Mayor's line to do with the difficulties in scheduling trees, or the challenges in terms of the process and also the cost, I suppose. So that kind of means the bar's relatively high. Is it correct that if we wanted more trees scheduled, or more bigger trees getting scheduled, that we have the capability to play around with the criteria that would then be able to be enacted without a plan change? Is that one recourse that conceivably that could be open to us?
Through the chair, if you wish to play with the criteria, you probably will need to do a plan change for that. My recollection is that for all of our schedules within the regional policy statement part of the plan, we actually specify the different values that make up a place or an object making it onto that schedule. And I think the notable tree schedule is the same. So if we were to alter those matters, we would need to do that via plan change. The other thing to be aware of is the extent to which you move away from what is considered to be industry or profession best practice. So the STEM, or standard tree evaluation methodology, is what is used through most of the country. The extent to which you modify that system does have risks associated with it.
And just thank you for that. Just another question to do with this notification, non-notification, and I understand what you say about notification and scheduled trees. My impression, I'm just reading of this incident in my own ward, where this 2 hectares of bush and trees was just cleared. It's a real blight. That a lot of the trees that are being lost are in these kind of in SEAs, where you might bowl multiple numbers of big trees, or in these bushes like this one at North Cross, which didn't quite meet the category for SEA, but had a lot of big trees and provided valuable environment for wildlife and all the rest of it. Is that where the big losses of the trees could be occurring, more so than, and which are non-notified in a number of instances, as opposed to, you know, the kind of more formal process with scheduled trees.
Well, that may actually not even be a consent process. I mean, those areas of vegetation may not be picked up by one of the rules that was mentioned within the report. And if that's the case, then the only way that you can actually tell that loss is through systems like the LiDAR system, to essentially create heat maps of locations where there's been loss between the 2013 and 2017 result, or locations where there's been gain between those two. So, yeah, it's a lot deeper than just consent data.
Okay, thank you. Just for the future report, can we just make sure that we pick up the, at the last annual plan, we took away the relief that we're offering on resource consents for applications on notable tree removals, and it also applied to more, severe pruning over 50 mils. It also applied to SEA areas, and I think the marginal areas, 20 metres or 30 metres, be it the coastal marine area proximity or freshwater stream proximity, which I think is 30 metres. Can we just have a look at what outcomes have been delivered on the taking away of that relief, whether the outcomes have been more than just financial relief to the council, and look at what positive outcomes there have been in terms of tree canopy retention.
Yep. Through the chair, we'll do our best given the difficulty of being able to extract some of this information.
And that's why we need that August date, I think. Yeah. Yep. Councillor Hills.
So maybe it's more than a comment than a question, but it's just process-wise. I just want to make sure that everyone realises that this is what happened because we asked for it in October. Like, the purpose of the report was to provide the committee with a summary of the regulatory and non-regulatory techniques used to manage and protect trees in Auckland. This is not something... So when we ask for an update of a summary of what we're doing, I can't imagine that would go to 21 local boards to ask them for input on a summary, and I can't imagine that now we're going to ask for more reports from a report we originally asked for. So we just have to be careful that, well, for me, it just seems a bit odd that we ask for big, lots of work done by officers, which is largely to provide a summary because of our concerns, which are important concerns, but then it comes back to us and then we sort of go around in circles again. So I just think we need to be, I just not sure exactly. So obviously the urban forest strategy is a strategy. This report was specifically a summary that we asked for. So just want to be clear, like obviously definitely important to kick off that work with government again, but I'm just unsure on exactly the purpose and what we're telling the public today of going forward, because this was just a summary we asked for and we've been given a summary, and now we're sort of getting off task and maybe confusing officers. I don't know if there's any way to sum that up, but just reading through the first few pages of the report, it's very clear that it's just a summary that we asked for on what we're doing, not a complete strategy change or and within the abilities of what we're doing, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, just on that, members, I've just checked with the Deputy Mayor on the second to the A. We actually can't endorse something that affects another committee which has already endorsed part of this work, and we can't endorse the work of what is effectively a regulatory function. So I think it's about noting the Council's current approach, taking into account the adoption of the urban forest strategy, which Councillor Filipaina rightly points out we unanimously agreed to. So I've just changed the word to note. That is what we are currently doing. And then when we get the further report in August, we might change and endorse something different to what the current approach is. Councillor Casey.
Yeah, you've got my amendment.
Okay, we'll put your amendment up.
Thank you.
But can you tell us what you're amending?
Yeah, you've taken away the word endorse, but basically we're noting the approach, and I think we shouldn't be noting anything in the absence of evidence. So whether you use the word endorse or note, we haven't got the evidence. There's a huge gulf between what the Tree Council are telling us and what officers are telling us. And I think we should just wait. There's no rush with this. If there's a report coming, then let's wait for the report. That's what I'm telling you. So that's what the amendment is. And I'm happy to speak to it.
Okay, can I just ask again, it is amending what? There
A.
is an...
It's amending A.
It's amending, replacing just the A.
Yep.
So what?
In other words, we will endorse or note an approach once we've got all the evidence. And if you've said that yourself, you just said that. It will be coming back in August. We may make a change. Well, why do we need to do anything today then and not just wait for the evidence to come before us? So the word was endorsed. That was in the report. You've changed that to note. That's fine. I suggest we don't do anything today. We just wait for the report to come.
Okay, look, just speaking to that briefly. Oh, do you have a second, please?
I haven't spoken to it. I was just answering your question. You asked me what it was. I told you.
Okay, do I have a second? Councillor Watson. Councillor Casey.
Thank you.
There's no decision.
We keep getting told not to rush into decision-making without evidence. There's absolutely no question from the Mayor's questions today to staff that there's a huge gulf between what the Tree Council is alleging is the case, what some of us know to be true on the ground is the case, and what staff are telling us. You know, that affects more than minor. It's not how I see it on the streets, I'm telling you. Not how I see it at all. Jody Mitchell once said back in 1970... Joni Mitchell, sorry. Joni Mitchell once said back in 1970... What was it? Don't always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it gone. They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. But there's another verse to that, and it says, they took all the trees and put them in a tree museum, and they charged all the people $1.50 just to see them. The point is, once the big tree in Araby Street comes down, it's gone. And you can put up 5 good-sized trees, but they will not replace the amenity value of that giant tree, and they're coming down all over Auckland. Maybe it's just my suburb, but I've heard other councils say exactly the same thing, and I've heard, more importantly, the Tree Council and local board chairs saying exactly the same thing. Now, are they coming down or aren't they coming down? I think they are. The evidence from the LIDAR statistics and the analysis that hasn't yet been done will tell us the effect of that change over the period. That's what I want to see before we say yes. It was a great workshop. I started by saying that. It was the first time I'd ever looked at across the region how our canopy is. But it's more than just a canopy. It's not just about the canopy. It's about notable trees, as we've talked about today. So, stop. Do nothing. Wait till August. That's what we have to do under the Local Government Act. You don't just make decisions willy-nilly while there is such a big important question hanging over us, and that is whether they're coming down or not, whether the trees are coming down or not. And that's it. I think it should get full support. I mean, the chair's actually endorsed it just a few minutes ago in his words, so just take a breath, a cup of tea or whatever it is they say, and do it in August. That's what the Tree Council's asking us for. Now, there's a couple of comments I'd like to make about the resolutions up there, even when they do come back.
We need to stick to the amendment. That's what is being debated.
All right. Well, I think the Mayor should be going to discuss this, not the staff. I think it's a political issue. It's absolutely a political issue with Wellington, so it's not something I'd be delegating, this one. And yeah, I'll come... Do I get to speak again when it comes to the...
I'm not sure what the...
Oh no, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this, so that'll be the end of it. Right.
Can I ask a question?
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? The chair's already endorsed it. Why don't we just say that's what we're doing?
Thanks for putting those words into my mouth and other people's ears, but I actually didn't say that, Councillor Casey. It is something you do quite often, and it's actually not appropriate at a council to suggest that a member of this council, of this body, actually endorses something when they actually haven't said that.
Oh,
so
I withdraw and apologise again.
No, it's fine for you to have these retorts, Councillor Casey, but this is the business of Auckland Council.
Oh,
it is,
God.
And I do ask you not to lead the committee. with inaccuracies, and you have in that regard.
I've said I
Councillor Simpson,
withdraw
you have a
and
question?
apologise. Did I not?
Come on, let's move on.
Councillor
May I
Simpson?
ask, I'm just a little bit confused, Mr Chairman. I don't really see the difference.
Yeah.
If it's not, I mean, I hope I'm not being too simple, but I don't really understand the difference between the amendment and the original resolution, because my problem with the amendment is that it doesn't say enough of the things that, can you please just scroll back up?
To the original
I actually believe, I actually agree with Councillor Casey that you shouldn't make a decision without the evidence. But actually, the original resolutions actually say that. They're noting what our current approach is. They're requesting staff to go and have a discussion and sort of feed out what some options are. I think you need all that kind of stuff before you make the decision. So I think that I must be missing something. I'm sorry.
Point of order, Mr Chairman. I'm only amending A. B and C still remain.
That's not a point of order.
It is a point of order. The councillor thought I was amending, that was all that there is, and it isn't.
Casey,
I'm only amending
I'm calling
A,
you
and that
to
is
order,
that we...
Councillor Casey. Sorry, that you did not identify that as a point of order. It's not a point of order. Councillor Simpson.
Well, you should be correcting it then. You're the chair.
Councillor Casey, this is our meeting, it's not your meeting. Councillor
It's
Simpson.
your meeting.
So I just need to, for clarification for myself, and forgive me, but currently we have it, we're just noting our approach, and the replacement is saying that we decide on the approach once the evidence is in support. Now, where I get a little bit confused is I think you need we will decide on the approach once the evidence is in support if we go with the original ones, won't we, in August? I must be missing why A is replacing the current A. I just don't, I'm sorry to be so simple, but I don't quite get it.
Thank you. Councillor Newman, did you want to speak to the amendment, or are you down for the substantive?
The substantive.
Okay, thank you. I'll just speak briefly, members. Members, that's... The word has changed from endorsing. It is not the place of this committee to endorse the Environment and Community Committee's work or any other committee, and the approach includes other decisions that have been made beyond this committee at other times. So it is noting, and I'm very willing to read the report and note what I've read, which reflects the approach that is currently in place, that reflects the decisions of other committees, namely the Environment and Community Committee earlier this year in February on the Urban Forest Strategy. So I think it's entirely appropriate to support the A, and I won't be supporting the amendment.
And the second part, sorry to labour the point.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted, did I?
No, you didn't. I'm just asking some questions. The approach, once the evidence and support has been tabled, we will decide on that approach. You're saying that if the amendment is not accepted, the approach, once we've got all the evidence and B and C and everything, will be done at the Environment and Community, which is why. Yes. Got it. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. I understand.
Thank you. Yep.
Apologies for being a bit.
I'm just
speaking to the amendment. Is it Councillor Walker to the amendment, or to the substantive?
Do you have another one? I'll speak to the amendment
Okay.
first, and I don't know whether this is the appropriate location or not. I'll seek your guidance on that. There isn't any mention anywhere around feedback from local boards. Is there a possibility of having that included? And the reason that I raised that is it didn't happen in this instance, and I don't want it to happen again. So I'm interested in a lockdown on our part to ensure that it does happen. So where would that go? Would it go in A, or does it go in D?
We just come back to Phil and Ruth on this. If you come back in August, how would you garner feedback from local boards? Would you go to them individually? I know that can take 3 months to go to local boards with a report to each local board. How would you approach that?
Point of order. Chair, sorry,
point of order.
I don't normally ask around point of order, but I just wanted to clarify, at least get clarification around a statement that Councillor Walker made, and that is around consultation with the local board, and he specifically said that it hasn't been done in this particular case. Well, he's wrong. And that's the clarification in my point of order, is to correct the statement that Councillor Walker made, because, Chair, just to clarify again, if you go back to the 12th of September 2017, around our urban forest strategy.
Okay, I think
so
you've
that's
gone
the point
beyond
of order.
the call of a point of order.
Yeah,
I
it
take the
is.
point.
Yes, it
Councillor
It's
Walker is looking
clarification.
forward, and he's wanting some assurance that
Correct.
that will take place in the next body of work, correct?
Yes, and I'm not talking about the urban forest strategy. I'm talking about this issue that goes to the decimation
Fair
of our tree cover.
Phil and Ruth, going forward, how would you garner feedback from local boards?
Through the Chair, within the timeline that we're presented with at the moment, to be able to actually take the raw data and then analyse that to report back with suggestions about how well the urban forest strategy is performing, I'm sceptical that there would be sufficient loop time available to actually get the views of local boards on that.
Okay, I'm just going to ask a question, bit of a barometer test. Is there a willingness to push it out to whatever month, September, possibly October, and get feedback from boards? Is there, Jim?
Can I suggest, sorry, just be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, we're bringing data back which will have been analysed. It's not a decision, it's just to inform. From that information, you can then ask us to do more, do something with that. And at that stage, we consult with the local board. So I think we're just getting a bit out of sync in this. So the LIDAR work is a data analysis piece which will tell you the comparison from 2013 to now, effectively, and that's to inform you. So I don't think you could. So of course we'll inform the local boards how it affects their areas as well, but there's no consult to be done at that point yet.
May I speak to this, Mr. Chair?
Do you have a question to that? Yes?
Well, it's an issue around that, and it goes to the fact that by all means we may wait for LIDAR data and consenting data, but local boards can arrive at their own data, their own case studies to feed into the process about what is happening in their areas.
Okay.
They're on the ground,
Right.
and that can feed into this process immediately.
Right now, we have an amendment before us, so we're only speaking to the amendment, and there's nothing there about that with respect, Councillor Walker.
Well,
So-
I would move a further amendment to add local boards.
You can't amend an amendment.
Yes, you
Okay. Unless there's a willingness between the mover and the seconder.
Absolutely delighted to amend my amendment, Councillor Walker.
Councillor Watson?
Now, I don't have any other speakers on the amendment.
No problem. So we'll add a B then.
Philip
Hello.
Hills.
Yep. Through you, Chair.
There is.
I'm opposed to the amendment because this is not what we asked for. We asked for, as a committee, for a summary of everything we're doing and what is done. The urban forest strategy is different. We then said it would come to this committee, Environment and Community and Regulatory. Then we all decided the summary should come back to planning. Then there's no change. We've been then given everything we are doing and talking about what's going on in the future, which included in the original submissions. We are noting the summary. There's nothing to decide and there's nothing to consult with local boards on either, because we're just telling people what we're doing of the decisions that have been made in the past on the approach. So we're not deciding a new approach or a new plan. It was our concerns of what's happening, and the urban forest strategy is completely different and does not come to this committee. So I'm just a bit annoyed that we're once again getting everyone very confused. So I'll be opposing this because we're just noting what is happening, and then everything else comes back to Environment and Community Committee. But also, local boards don't get consulted on reports that aren't reports and decision-making that's not decision-making. This is a summary of what we're doing. So,
Finally, sorry.
yep. So I'll oppose this, and we continue on noting.
Finally, Councillor Filipainen.
Thank you, Chair. And I was going to ask the question based on what Councillor Hills has just said, is that the Environmental and Community Committee, just clarification question on the amendment, that any approach in regards to the information, the LiDAR data, the resource consent data, all that will be decided by the Environmental and Community Committee?
Through the Chair, if the report simply has a recommendation that the information be received, then it is a further summary of what the monitoring information is telling us. And taking the point from Jim Quinn, it wouldn't necessarily need to involve a round with local boards. Does that answer the question?
No. I'm saying the final decision in regards to, now I know this relates to the urban forest strategy, and I'm talking about that, but in regards to the amendment, because that's the only question I'm asking on, is around the decision that will be made on the approach once the evidence. That will be that will become, the decision will be that of the Environmental and Community Committee.
That will be, look, just for, can I help answer that, Councillor Filipaina? For efficiency's sake, we don't want one decision made at this committee and then it has to be referred to another. So Councillor Hulse and I resolved that initially it would land here and then it would land at Environment and Community Committee. Even if there are possible planning implications, we may agree that that is the best place for that decision to be made, or even a regulatory decision, but it has to be in consultation with the relevant chairs and deputy chairs.
And I'm happy with that. That's why they asked the question, because I won't be supporting A. That's the reason I end up asking the question. At least you've clarified that. I knew what the answer would be again, Chair, and I reserve my right to end up speaking with the substantive after this, but also to put up what I've given you with the piece of paper in regards to replacement for C.
Okay. Right, that's the final speakers on the amendments. I'll put the amendment.
I have a B, which I have lodged with the Secretary.
Okay, so now I've got a B, but you moved the A, so you need to, I'm open to refinement of the A. Now we've got...
We've refined it with permission of the seconder.
Okay, so what do you want to...
Just put it up.
No, this is... I'm sorry, Councillor Casey, you've given me a B. Just as I'm about to put your amendment...
No, we talked about it. We talked about it before, and I said...
You may have talked about it. I've only just got...
We talked about it in public.
Councillor Casey, you don't need to get excited.
I'm not excited.
I raised it. The mover and seconder of the amendment agreed to it.
Okay, it has to be related to the A that you've got there.
It's related to the
I think we should
discussion
need
we
another
just
Easter
had.
break.
Oh, look, I'm not going to take...
I'm with Mike.
I'm not taking this. I'm going to put the A. All
Point
those
of
in
order,
favour
Mr.
say
Chairman. Point of order. No, you can't do this. I'll take advice from Democracy Services. We did have, that was a democratic debate. We agreed to change it. We've put it up there. You can vote it down, but you can't not accept it.
I said I'm happy to take a refinement to A, but I've got a totally new motion.
No, you can amend an amendment. We just had that discussion.
I will ask, okay, we'll take the...
I'll amend it. Can I amend? Can I move? Would it be simpler if I moved it? No?
Can I amend? Can an amendment be amended?
It can be added to.
Is it Lee and Walker can do it?
That can be added to...
Kathy and John can add to it. Chairman's being told that.
Cheers, take some advice. I get Lee and Walker, Mr. Chairman, or Walker and Lee.
Okay, so it can be added to the A, or is it a fresh motion?
Can't have a fresh one.
It's just that it came up in the discussion with Councillor Walker when he raised it as a question to the mover and the seconder, and they did agree. And then Kathy did bring it over, but you only just saying. So I think it can be added.
Okay, I didn't see it until I was pointed out. So, am I required to invite debate on the new motion?
That's your call as the chair.
Okay, we'll put the B up, and it's A and B as an amendment together, but
What is B?
it's coming, councillor. But because it's not been seen, I am required to invite any debate.
future.
I'll happily speak to it, Councillor Walker. The local board's made it clear to us today that our consultation with them over the matter of trees is something they consider significant, and they'd like to be kept in the loop, and this is really just a way of keeping them in the loop. It's no biggie. So when we get our information back with regard
Sorry, I
to...
need to bring you to order. You've already spoken to the amendment.
All right.
I'm going to go by standing orders, members.
It's
This
fine,
is
no,
what
it's all
we
good. It's all good.
this is what we signed
Good
up
on
to.
you, Mr. Chairman.
No, it stays there, but the mover can't. The mover has actually had the speaking to.
The end should be an in.
Anybody who has not spoken to the first amendment can speak.
Yeah, I'm also, Mr. Chair. I think,
Ashmore.
so as far as B is concerned, that's just business as usual. Once we've got some recommendations for this is what happens as part of our usual business, it doesn't need to be stated. And we're really over-egging A. So we're just wanting this to come back with the data so then we can come forward with some recommendations after working with some staff. So the original A is fine, but this is over-egged completely.
Happy to speak to this, Mr. Chair.
To the B.
To be, the reason it's not over-egged is we're sitting here today and the consultation, the engagement with local boards has been absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And as a councillor with an interest in the community and an interest in local boards, as I said before, I'm interested in some lockdown, that we are going to have some genuine consultation and engagement with local boards. That's why I want it up there.
Councillor Filipaina.
Chair, I'm not going to vote for B. And hearing another councillor put down our staff in regards to the consultation with the local boards is shocking. I would suggest that the councillor reads the 12th of September 2017 report that went to the Environmental and Community Committee in regards to the consultation that happened with the local boards. And also I would suggest that Councillor Walker reads the agenda and the minutes on the 20th of February 2018. And that is proposed strategy. Now this is in regards to the urban forest strategy, which incorporates protection of trees. But on number 28, proposed strategy identifies ongoing engagement with local boards to identify more details, area-specific implementation actions. So, Councillor Walker, have a look at the 12th of September 2017 and the 20th of February 2018 and just see if you end up changing your mind, because your statement was wrong, it was shocking, but I'm not concerned about that. I'm just used to it.
Through
So
you,
thank
Mr.
you,
Chair.
thank you, Chair.
No.
I wish to reply.
No, you can't.
Should be
A
addressed through
councillor
the
here
chair.
Order,
has
please.
made remarks that
We're
are
straying,
untrue
aren't we?
about myself.
I don't really care at this stage, Councillor Walker.
That's not in standing order, surely. Not that I don't really care.
So,
I'd say that.
no, this is not an opportunity. If you don't like what somebody says in a debate, use the standing orders. If you object to particular
Point of
words,
order.
you can do that.
I object.
So in the future,
May I have an
use the
opportunity to
standing
make a
orders,
statement?
please.
May I make a statement?
No, you've
Very
made this-
brief.
No, I'm not. I'm actually going to move through and I'm going to call a division on A.
Just put them together, thank you.
A and B.
Do them together, yeah.
Put them together, A and
A
B.
division.
Okay, so they've been called for together, which could affect the vote, but that's fine. They've been called to be put together.
No, it doesn't.
So this is a division on the amendment proposed by Councillor Casey and seconded by John Watson and Councillor Darby.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Kathy?
Your vote. Your vote.
Yes. Sorry.
Deputy Mayor.
No.
Councillor Collins.
Against.
Councillor Filipaina.
Against?
Mayor Goff.
No.
Councillor Hills.
Against.
Councillor Mike Lee.
Aye.
Councillor Newman.
Against.
Member Namini.
No.
Councillor Sayers.
No.
Councillor Simpson. Councillor Stewart. Yes. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Watson.
Yes.
Okay, so that was
Declare that lost, 5 to 10. So we'll go back to the substantive and put that up now.
Chair, can we put up, I gave you C, which I think rewords
Okay, we'll just
the
find
current
the C.
C.
Have you got the C?
And it also, Chair, just to sort of, and it's up to you and the mover and the seconder if you want to replace C. It just changes C. It uses the word notes. I can read it out for you, Chair, if you wish.
I did see it, and we just can't find it in the hubbub of things here. Just a minute, Councillor.
Okay.
I read the C, and I didn't think it was substantially different to the existing C.
Well, Chair, can I just explain and
Can you
I'll
read it out, please?
Okay, all it is, because you've got to receive a further report, but there's actually a report going to the Environmental and Community Committee. And I've mentioned it during this particular debate on this item. But what C does is that it notes that the Environment and Community Committee is due to receive a report in August on the results of LIDAR data in the context of the Council's urban forest strategy, comma, and request staff to include analysis of resource consent data in that report. And Chair, the reason I put that there is based on, again, the C that was added to the Environmental and Community Committee on the 20th of February. And again, just to the committee, I'll just read it out. It requests staff to report back to the committee on the results of the LIDAR survey and an implementation plan for the strategy, which will include the additional work on costs and benefits and funding sources in August 2018 or earlier, if possible, subject to availability of LIDAR data. It just, for me,
How different is your C to that C? Because it's pretty much the same.
Well, it is pretty much the same, but I mean, we're not receiving a further report. We're actually including your resource consents data into the current report that's coming back to the Environmental and Community Committee. It's not a further report. It's saying it's to note, as you have done on A. You've noted that.
Can we just simplify what we've got? I'd like to get past this
Me
item.
too, Chair.
And I think everybody else would. So I think it's maybe note a report to the Environment and Community Committee with updated data.
Yep.
Okay, all done? Oh, good. Okay, I think we've.
To the future, is that report will be received by the...
I'm just
report
To the environment.
will be, note a report to the.
that's what I'm saying. I don't know why.
Will be. Why don't you just do what?
We'll just work that out.
We'll go to the
We know that
environment.
there's a report going to Environment Community Committee.
That's fine, you've got it.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that's it.
Councillor Newman.
Victor English.
Thank you. It's been interesting. With respect, it is really useful to read the report.
Yeah.
Because the report, I think, has been quite well written. I think that this is one of those situations where people are trying to give something to a certain constituency of public opinion, absent being able to actually deliver what that constituency wants, which is a very different approach to tree protection than is currently available, because the law doesn't allow what the Tree Council wants. Chair, it's worth noting that if you want to go to town in terms of protecting trees, notable trees and what have you, there would have to be a plan change. Nobody's aiming for a plan change from what I can see. Actually, the Act, as I understand it, and the officers can confirm this, the Act doesn't require that all consents should be notified. That is a decision that our planners, our consenting staff make. It's an operational decision. I'm comfortable with that. I'm not quite sure what you would do with the resource consent data should it be possible, practical, to be able to harvest that information for the purpose of a report. So you get resource consent data. Then what are you going to do with it then? You know, the information about what has been consented will be information about what has happened in the past. What are you going to do? You're going to change the policy that we adopted only last year. I would prefer that we actually go about trying to implement the changes that were identified in the policy and actually do something useful and practical about increasing the level of canopy, particularly in those parts of Auckland like mine that actually don't have very good canopy coverage at all, and the Manukau ward, which is even worse than Manirei or Papakura. Chair, it is worth noting, and look, so with respect to C, I would like my opposition to that to be recorded. With respect to B, it is a binary exercise. If you don't like the statutory framework that applies, you have to change the RMA. The officers have confirmed you either change Section 76 of the Act or you address the definitional issue of urban forest, which is excluded from the application of the definition of environment under the Act. So you have to go through a law change. That's really the only option you've got available. That will take a long time. And actually, I have to say, and I'm very honest with Dr. Barton, I don't support that. So with respect to B, I would like my opposition to that to be recorded as well. I don't support B. Chair, I think before we just embark on this, on these recommendations, Chair, I would just ask people to reflect on what they think is the problem definition here in this, that this report is not picking up, and then what are they trying to solve, and if they're trying to solve anything, it seems to me you'd have to actually go back and look at the policy that was only recently adopted and fundamentally rewrite it, noting that actually the tools that you need to be able to do that, i.e. the socialisation of all trees on private property, is not something you can do. The final thing I would say, Chair, is that actually there are a lot of trees in the public realm on council assets that I would actually like to see felled. And, you know, I understand that some trees would have to go and you'd have to plant trees somewhere else. I've got deciduous trees that chronically foul the road corridor in autumn and winter in parts of my ward. Trees that, you know, do untold damage to the road corridor, to pipes underground. Tree roots are a real problem. I went out with the county's Manukau Police, the Papakura Police, on Thursday night. They have a real issue with the impact of trees in certain locations from a SIPTED perspective, the safety issues that those trees cause. You know, I don't presume that all trees are sacred. I like trees. I think trees are very important for the environment. But I'm not going to try and retrofit a different view of the world based on the application of a report that has some contested elements to it, I accept, but actually there's more information coming back anyway. So, Chair, I don't even know why we need to amend A, to be honest, taking into account the adoption of blah, blah, blah. That's a given from my perspective. So, if a division's not being called, could you please record my opposition to B and C, because I don't support those provisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Councillor Filipaina, I had you, but you've withdrawn.
No, I can you put C separately, because I'll be voting against it?
Okay, put C
Thank you.
separately. Councillor, I've got Councillor Casey, but Councillor Casey, you've already spoken.
But you wouldn't let me speak about the substantive, and I wanted to make one point about B.
I'll just check with staff. When you are moving an amendment, you're actually speaking to it at that point, but I'll check with staff and we'll just go by what
You wouldn't let me.
I'll just go by what the standing orders say.
Can we have a division on B and C, maybe?
I'll just ask the staff to respond to the question of Councillor Casey speaking.
So when you move an amendment, you're taken as having spoken to the substantive.
He wouldn't let me speak to the substantive. He said I had to speak to the amendment.
That's not the case.
No, that was once you'd moved the amendment.
Because I wanted to speak about B, and whether it should be the mayor going to Wellington.
You are restricted to speaking to the amendment. That's the standing order. So I'm going to ask again, does Councillor Casey, under the standing orders, have a right to speak again now?
No, because when she,
1 minute.
it would be within your discretion, but basically when you move an amendment, you're taken to have spoken to the substantive when you're moving the amendment.
Okay, thank you. So we need to move on then. Are there any other speakers to... Oh, Councillor Walker.
I want to speak to the substantive motion, if I may,
Aye.
Mr Chair. And I'm speaking to an item which is about managing and protecting trees at Auckland. It's not an item around the urban forest strategy. It's not that item. It's about managing and protecting trees. And the concern I have, which I think is shared by many Aucklanders, is we are not managing and protecting trees in Auckland. We are seeing the demise of hundreds of thousands of trees across the Auckland landscape. Against a background where we have curry dieback, which is accelerating, and we know is going to remove probably millions of trees across Auckland, myrtle rust, that we know from its occurrence in other locations, has potential impact across Pahutakawa and Rata that is nothing short of catastrophic. Climate change, which is increasing warming, biodiversity issues around any number of disease organisms that are attacking an increasing variety of our native vegetation. And we are seeing wholesale ecosystem loss. Associated with the loss of trees, we've got massive sedimentation into a gulf, that is the Hauraki Gulf, where we know that its state is chronic. So the overall context in Auckland that goes to the need to preserve, maintain and enhance our tree cover is more important than ever. So for me, and I'm speaking as a politician, what I do is I join the dots. I see what's happening across the landscape. I would suggest that some case studies are highly useful here, because I have no doubt that there is substantiated loss in tree cover, and it is urgent. Were it not for the likes of Mel's Barton, Forest and Bird and other organisations, we might not be doing a damn thing, and we should be. And we are compelled through the RMA to take a stand on these issues and redress what we see is happening. So for me, this report is very important, and the action that we take as a consequence is incredibly important. So I'm hopeful that the officers are going to put in the diligence, the data, and allow us some options so we can make the appropriate decisions.
Thank you. Member Namani.
Kia ora. I'll be brief. I'm comfortable. I've got a clarification on number C, but I'm generally comfortable with the resolutions. I've heard different perspectives, different approaches, so I'm looking forward to the actual data and kind of review then. C, is that accurate? What I'd heard was the Environment and Community Committee is getting updated LIDAR data, not resource consent data.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't make sense to me, for want of just tidying that up. That's the issue for me there, is that I understand that that information doesn't contain the resource consent data. That's what we're asking.
So you are technically correct, and we're just trying to simplify it. So the instruction for the LIDAR data came from Environment and Community, and today we've talked about resource consents data coming from this decision-making body. Just for simplicity's sake, it's just being represented that way.
I understand that, but then for simplicity's sake, we've got the deputy chair of the other committee that's going to be voting against it. So I would think for simplicity's sake, we make that clear. I mean, I'm just saying.
What?
Like,
So,
If you have a proposal...
oh, God. trees or just
I
something
was-
simple that
I thought
denotes
that the
that.
deputy chair agreed to the changes in the C.
Look, I
No.
gave up when you said, look, we just made that change, Chair. And can I clarify the reason why? Because I was just going to vote against it. On the 20th of February, there was no discussion at all around resource consents data. None at all. So now you're saying that the report will be received by us, which will include the resource consents data. That's why the recommendation that I gave you explicitly covered two things through you, Chair. One, it covered the recommendation on the 20th of February, plus also your recommendation today, which was to include, the report to include resource consents data. This is why, because there was no decision made on the 20th, but your C actually says that we will be receiving it. There was no decision on it. And
Okay, look,
I mean, it was about process, Chair, and that's why when I just sort of thought, well, if you're going to go...
look. Can I ask?
see it.
Do you think we're going to achieve the same outcome to get the report with
Chair,
the right
I
request?
look at the second part was just to include resource consents data to accompany the report made on the 20th, the recommendation. That's all I wanted you to put in there, was that it was going to include what the decision you made here. That's all it was.
Okay,
And that's all I wanted to clarify.
I'll put the motions
Can we have a division?
on
B and C.
on B.
And C.
Okay, I'll take a division on B. On for
C.
A, noting. All those in favour say aye.
C.
Aye. Contrary, no.
No.
Declare that carried. Going to B, I'll take a division,
And C.
and then I'll take a division on C.
Okay, so the division is on clause B. Councillor Darby,
4.
Councillor Casey,
4.
Deputy Mayor,
4.
Councillor Collins,
4.
Councillor Filipina,
Or
Mayor Goff,
4.
Councillor Hills,
4.
Councillor Mike Lee,
Aye.
Councillor Newman,
Against.
against, sorry, okay. Member Namini,
For.
Councillor Sayers,
4.
Councillor Simpson, sorry, Councillor Stewart,
No.
Wasn't very emphatic.
Councillor Wayne Walker,
Yes.
Councillor Watson.
Yes.
That was close.
Declare that carried, and
We've
the
all had one
numbers
of those
are
votes, Daniel.
13 to 2.
Why are you voting?
We'll go to the C. Is there a request for a division,
Think that's
Councillor Newman, on C?
Yeah, there was.
it was made.
Did I hear a request for a division on C?
Yeah, yes.
Division on C, please.
Okay, so the division on C, Chairperson Darby,
4.
Councillor Casey,
Yes.
Councillor Cashmore,
Yes.
Councillor Collins,
Against.
Councillor Filipina,
Against.
Mayor Phil Goff,
4.
Councillor Hills,
Yes, please.
Councillor Lee,
Aye.
Councillor Newman,
No.
Member Namine,
Yes.
Councillor Sayers,
4.
Councillor Simpson,
4.
Councillor Stewart,
No.
Councillor Wayne Walker,
Yes.
Councillor Watson.
4.
Declare that carried,
better that
11
time, Daniel.
votes to 4.
Go for another one.
It starts to climbing, mate.
Hang on.
Hey,
What else can we vote?
we'll now go to item 11, which is on 139, and
Oh, well, let's get
I'll move Tony Reedy. Oh, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ruth.
apologise.
Yeah.